Ed Sheeran needs to cease and desist immediately. Yeah, I know he's all eco-friendly and reforestation, and those are very good things. But if there was an actual scoreboard and you lost points for cultural appropriation, Ed Sheeran would still be in the red and falling fast. Galway Girl was one thing, right? In fairness, the first and most famous song, at least in Ireland anyway, called The Galway Girl, was written by Steve Earle, who was a foreigner, but he was living in Ireland at the time. He invited the girl it's written about to play Bellew on it, and he frequently invites Irish musicians to play it on stage with him, and he credits them for it. Now, if you didn't know this, you would think that Ed Sheeran's completely different song called Galway Girl seems like a cute little tip of the hat to his Irish roots, until you realise that it was rather cynically released on St Patrick's Day 2017. No better day to corner those drunken Irish consumers, am I right? If you're watching this, Ed, which you're probably not, I hope you at least gave a life-changing paycheck to the Irish folk band you brought in to give you that Irish trad sound you made so much money from, because you certainly didn't credit them as featured artists on the track anywhere I could see it. I had to go all the way to Wikipedia to find out there were even Irish musicians playing on this track. According to Sheeran, he had to fight his record label to keep the song on his album. Quote, they were really against Galway Girl because apparently folk music isn't cool. However, he was able to convince them to include the song by telling them that it would be a, quote, f***ing massive hit, because there are 400 million people in the world who will say they are Irish, even if they aren't. Are we meant to thank you, Ed, for appropriating our culture and taking all the credit? Really? That same year, he name-dropped Belfast musician Van Morrison in Shape of You, which made him sound cool, I guess. It's currently his biggest hit to date and has over 5.5 million views on YouTube. Now, I'm not saying that this is because of his Van Morrison reference, but it clearly didn't hurt. Then in 2019, Barnaby's auctioned off Ed's blue jumper described as Aran style, which is an Irish style. The sale was part of a lot being sold for charity, but it didn't mention that Aran is a traditional Irish art, nor that this piece also looks nothing like Aran. In fact, it looks like any mass-produced jumper you'd find on the high street. If certification is required for the provenance of antiques, it certainly should be required for native crafts too, especially if your country has an 800-year history of oppressing the nation whose crafts are directly or indirectly bumping up your profit margins. And now up to the most recent and offensive of incidences. Jools Holland's annual New Year's Eve Hootenanny. Don't come for me on watching British TV at New Year's. I'm an anxious introvert with very eclectic music tastes. Jools has been saving me on this most extroverted of nights for many years now. And usually he's really supportive of and respectful to Irish musicians. In fact, that same night I went looking for full throwback episodes of the New Year's Hootenanny and found one from 1995 which features 3 respected Irish musicians singing their own songs. And that has been a common theme on his show ever since. We're not a token minority to him, we're all just musicians. At least that's what I thought. But this year, he let me down. So badly, in fact, that for the first time ever, I switched the channel. And I'm actually still furious every time I think about it. Raglan Road was written by Patrick Kavanagh, a poet from my own village of Inniskeen, County Monaghan. It was published in 1946 and was famously put to music when Patrick Kavanagh met Luke Kelly of the Dubliners, a balladeering folk band who in the 1970s put it to the air of The Dawning of the Day, another Irish song. On a personal note, this was my father's song to sing at family sessions and one of the first ballads I learned in my youth. And Ed Sheeran thinks it's perfectly okay as a British singer who's on record as wanting to profit from Irish identity, to sing this jewel in the crown of Ireland's poetry on a show that's a British institution without a hint of cultural context or a word about its roots. He did, however, spend several moments making a big deal about being seen to be spontaneously inviting another British identifying singer, who at least has an Irish father, up for a spontaneous duet of this song. What's wrong, Ed? Were your token Irish songwriters not available that night, or have you just dropped them like a hot potato? If Ed Sheeran were living in Ireland, contributing to our society and our tax base, and no, appearing on the Late Late Toy Show once a year to plug your own music doesn't count. And helping us to effectively decolonise as a nation after the better part of a millennium of British rule. I might not get this visceral reaction to his bland melodic stylings on this most beloved song of ours, but I hated it before he sang the first note, okay? I forced myself to listen to the first two lines, and then after a short spell of the red mist and a nice cup of tea, I decided to make this video. Because it'll never stop if we don't speak up. And it needs to stop. Granted, Ed says he loves Ireland deeply, but he also seems to say that about everywhere he does gigs. I looked for footage confirming whether or not he actually showed up to a festival held in his honour in Galway the same year he made millions off his single, Galway Girl, and couldn't find any. Admittedly, I only spent 1 hour researching this video. Ed Sheeran wasn't particularly high on my radar until he came into my house where I was minding my own business and started some shit. So if you want me to investigate Ed Sheeran's colonial skullduggery, comment "We want a deep dive" down below. And tell me what you think while you're down there. Does Ed Sheeran need to be sacrificed to the gods of the bog, or at the very least to the Irish Tourist Board? Also, is Patrick Kavanagh turning in his grave? Let me know in the comments. Stay tuned for more witchy cease and desist notices here on Diary of a Ditch Witch channel. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to know every time I upload a new video. I post every Thursday, but I want to start doing more extra wee bits too. It's a good way to express my feelings without having to shell out for a therapist. And let me know if there's anything like this that you want me to cover, and I'll see you next time. Slán agus beannacht, goodbye and good luck to you.
Still baby times, and I make it happen. But I love to love, I'm certain success, and happiness on I